It was an old house, far older than one in the center of the village, far older than anything anyone remembered. Sarah had inherited it after the death of her great aunt, who had lived there alone for as long as Sarah could remember. The house stood on the edge of a dense forest, its windows broken, its shutters hanging by one hinge, and its door sagging as if it was tired of being opened and closed. The air around it was thick with mildew and something else, something heavy, as if the house was holding its breath. The first night Sarah stayed in the house, she tried to sleep in the upstairs bedroom, but the bed felt strange beneath her. It creaked unnaturally. The sheets were scratchy. The air was so still. It seemed almost oppressive. It wasn't until the clock struck midnight that she heard it, a soft rustling, faint as a whisper, but persistent. She sat up in bed, her heart pounding. She strained her ears, trying to locate the sound. Then came the whisper. Sarah. Her breath caught in her throat. It wasn't just a voice. It was a presence. She felt it, cold and familiar, as if it had been waiting for her. Slowly, she stood up and made her way to the door, each step echoing in the silent house. The whispering grew louder. Sarah, come closer. It was coming from the attic. She froze. The attic was locked. She checked earlier. The door was bolted shut, the only key hanging on a nail in the kitchen. She hadn't touched it. With shaking hands, she pulled open the door to the attic. The air that escaped was frigid, like the exhale of something long and dead. As she climbed the stairs, the whispering grew louder, more urgent. She reached the top and approached the door, her heart hammering in her chest. She didn't know why, but she felt compelled to open it. The door groaned as she pushed it open. Inside, the room was dark, save for the faint glow of the moonlight filtering through a crack in the window. But it wasn't the darkness that made Sarah's skin crawl. It was the movement. In the far corner of the room, a shape was shifting, bending unnaturally, like the shadows themselves were alive. The whispering was louder now. 100 voices, all whispering her name. Sarah! Sarah. The shape twisted into something more human-like, but not quite. Its arms were too long, its legs too thin, its face was a blur of shifting features, eyes wide open and hollow, a mouth that opened too wide, too slow, as if it had been waiting for her to come closer. And then it spoke. You should have never come here. The air grew colder still. The whispering was no longer just a sound, it was a presence, pressing down on her chest, suffocating her. Her legs felt like lead as she tried to step back, but her body wouldn't obey. The thing in the corner reached out with long, spindly fingers, its form more fluid than solid, as though it were made of smoke and shadow. Leave now. But Sarah couldn't move. She couldn't breathe. The shadows seemed to close in on her, wrapping around her, pulling her closer to the thing in the corner. It could breathe down her neck, and its fingers brushed her skin, like the touch of death itself. With one last effort, Sarah screamed. Slamming the attic door shut, the whispering stopped instantly. She stood there, shaking uncontrollably, the sound of her own heartbeat ringing in her ears. But when she turned to leave, she saw it was behind her. The figure, no longer just a shadow, was right there in the doorway. It smiled, wide mouth stretching impossibly, the teeth jagged and yellow. Sarah backed away, but it followed her. Every step she would take, they would follow her, all of them chanting her name. Sarah, Sarah, Sarah. The house once, her great aunt's sanctuary, now felt like a tomb. And Sarah realized, with growing horror, that it wasn't just her that the house had been waiting for. It was waiting for all of them. The spirits of those who had been drawn to it, trapped for eternity. Their whispers were the last thing anyone ever heard before they vanished into the dark. She turned, running for the front door, but when she reached it, it wouldn't open. The handle was cold, slick, with something that wasn't just water. The house was alive, and it would never let her leave.